So after having reviewed DreamWorks Animation's worst movie, I figured it's only fair to take a propaganda at Pixar's worst too. Cars 2 is generally considered Pixar's first downright bad feature film, and it's easy to see why. The first Cars film, while generally well regarded, wasn't quite as beloved as Pixar's other works, and the sequel took all of its flaws, amplified them, and generally rubbed out most of the positives. So this time, let's just get right into it. What went wrong with Cars 2? While the original Cars was a slice-of-life movie focusing on an arrogant race car learning to become more humble and appreciate life in a backwater town, the sequel is a spy movie. Okay, I'm not saying this genre shift couldn't have worked, but unfortunately it doesn't quite work. We open the film with secret agent Finn McMissile on a mission to help a fellow agent uncover a secret plot hidden in the middle of a vast oil field. His efforts are thwarted, but he is able to extract some information and continue on his mission. Okay, so I do get what they're going for here. Given a lot of spy movies feature cars with all kinds of fancy gadgets, bringing that concept into the Cars world is a clever idea. Like I said, it's not that this couldn't have worked, but it doesn't, and I'll go into why. See, we then cut to Lightning McQueen returning to Radiator Springs and finding out about a big race being planned by an oil tycoon named Miles Axelrod, who wants to showcase his newly developed alternative fuel all in all. McQueen just wants to settle down, but his best friend Mater drags him into a rivalry with new and up-and-coming racer Francesco Bernuoli. In other words, there are basically two stories here, one being Lightning McQueen wanting to win the big race and beat his new rival, the other being Finn McMissile uncovering the secret plot to take out the competing race cars. Despite the connections, the two stories just don't gel together, and one of the main reasons is that Lightning McQueen is no longer the main protagonist. Now we're following the annoying comic relief Mater. Mater is the only thing, besides the race premise, that is connecting these stories, and he's doing so just in the worst way possible. Finn and his fellow agent Holly mistake Mater for a fellow spy and think he's their colleague who's been assigned to their mission too. Now, this isn't quite a liar-revealed plot, given Mater never outright lies about being a spy, but it's still one of those ridiculous failure of communication plots. Finn and Holly very conveniently play along with every stupid thing he says or does. Like, okay, I get that Holly is supposed to be a new and inexperienced agent, so maybe I could buy her being fooled, but if Finn is such an experienced agent, why is he being such a fool about this? Anyway, the three of them discover a secret plot by a bunch of lemon cars, those being cars that don't work properly, who want to ruin the reputation of Allanol and alternative fuels in general by using a device that causes it to combust in order to take out the race cars one by one. Now, let me just say, this plot is actually a lot stupider than it sounds at first, but I'll explain why later. Meanwhile, Mater is consistently embarrassing Lightning McQueen, at one point costing him a race against Francesco, causing a brief, inevitable falling out until Mater learns that the bad guys are targeting Lightning during the final race. Right, so I have quite a few issues with this movie, but let's start with Mater. Mater is just such an annoying character. He's the type of character who is ignorant to the point of obnoxiousness, but feels absolutely no shame and is more than happy to annoy people as much as he likes. And the movie, for some reason, acts like this is a good thing? Oscar from Shark Tale was, by all accounts, a worse character given he was actively choosing to be a jerk rather than just doing it out of ignorance, but at the very least, when Angie called him out for it, the movie portrays her as being in the right. Here, when Lightning McQueen calls out Mater for embarrassing him and costing him the victory against Francesco, we're expected to see him as in the wrong. Except, no, Lightning was entirely correct. Mater screwed him over out of sheer carelessness and stupidity. The movie doesn't even pull a "we're both wrong and we both need to improve" message. It flat out tells us that Mater is perfect the way he is and should never ever change, even though his ignorance generally is obnoxious and rude. Like, no, Mater should try to improve himself. There's nothing wrong with being a bit of an airhead, but that's not Mater's problem. It's his carelessness, his refusal to respect anyone's boundaries, and the fact that he just doesn't listen. Maybe little kids will at least find him funny, but then again, surely kids would find Lightning McQueen cooler and thus would rather watch him as the main protagonist. Speaking of which, Lightning has very little to do here. His only role is to get embarrassed and screwed over by Mater, and then quite rightfully call him out for it, only to be vilified by the movie as a result. His plot simply takes a back seat to the spy plot, to the point where his rivalry with Francesco goes absolutely nowhere. Normally, in a movie like this, Francesco would be the false lead. The big mystery throughout this movie is who is truly leading the plot to take out All. Like, surely Francesco would be the perfect red herring. Someone we're led to believe is taking out the other race cars so that he could be victorious, but nah, this plot just isn't that important. In fact, it's so unimportant that we don't even find out who wins the race in the end. The actual villain behind the plot is Miles Axelrod, the billionaire who created All. See, he discovered that giant oil field we see at the beginning, and so decided to use the race as a way to make alternative fuels look bad, so he could put everyone off of buying them, and keep selling oil. Except, one problem here, why does he keep up the charade so long? If All has a big problem with combustion, then why not just have him call off the race once the big crash happens midway through? Like, you have your evidence now, better quit while you're ahead, especially given there are spies trying to interfere. We're also never told about any other kinds of alternative fuel making big progress, so if All is the only option, then what's stopping Axelrod just selling both All and regular oil? This all seems like a really lazy way of shoehorning in an environmentalist message. But believe it or not, there's yet another terrible message being given off by this movie. One that I really hope was unintentional. See, the villains of this movie are all lemons. Those being, as I said, cars that break down easy or don't work properly. In other words, I can only see them as an analogue to the disabled. And they're all shown to be bitter and evil and jealous of fully functional cars. Okay, two problems here. Number one, what does that have to do with alternative fuel? And number two, why is this movie so desperate to paint the disabled as evil and worthless? Like, they don't even show it so that the lemons realise that they were being manipulated by big fancy rich car Axelrod, cause turns out he's secretly a lemon too. Literally, the only lemon portrayed positively is just a random car we see Mater helping, who's mostly just treated as a joke. And like I say, there's no reason for this to be a part of the plot. If this is about alternative fuels and big oil, then fine, just have the villain be an evil oil baron and have his henchpeople just be money-hungry crooks. Remember the movie Robots by Blue Sky Studios? The one where old, broken-down robots were being oppressed by the shiny, rich corporation that was trying to wipe out anyone that wasn't upgraded? Well, apparently Pixar took a look at that and thought, well, that's great and all, but what if actually the rich, upgraded folks were good and the downtrodden, broken folks were bad? In the real world, disabled folks being mistreated and forgotten by society is a real problem. Many disabled folks do suffer from the sheer lack of assistance society is willing to offer. So seeing this movie say, shut up, suck it up and deal with it, otherwise you're just a big bad jealous villain, well, I can't help but feel it may just be a bit of a slap in the face. Honestly, the worst part of this movie has to be the messages it puts across. First, we have the message that if you're a careless, obnoxious idiot who doesn't listen and regularly screws over your friends, well, they have no right to complain because you're actually perfect and they're the ones who need to change. And then we have the lovely message that the disabled have no right to complain about their bad treatment from society because only evil people do that. Yeah. So, if that's what went wrong, how would I put it right? Well, I certainly wouldn't have Mater as the main protagonist, and I would have the stories more connected. Start in more or less the same way, with Finn McMissile bailing from his mission and have him find out the explosion device is being taken to the big race. Then have him find out that Lightning McQueen, a potential competitor, is staying in a sleepy small town, so Finn figures he can easily contact him there without drawing much attention. Finn meets with him, explains that he fears there's going to be some kind of sabotage, and asks if he can pose as a member of his crew to get more information. If you still want Mater in there and the lesson about acceptance, then have Mater and Finn work together, but have Finn not take him seriously, and hey, what if Finn puts him down for being a lemon? Just get rid of the awful evil lemons plot and have Mater be the lemon who's falling apart, who can prove himself. Have them suspect Francesco of being the one behind the accident, but then have Mater look at the photo of the culprit's engine and figure out the small details proving otherwise, just like in the original. Completely cut the lemon plot. I mean, Axelrod doesn't need that many evil henchmen anyway, and rather than having his backstory of him suddenly switching to alternative fuels, have it so that other alternative fuels were starting to take off and he was losing vast amounts of money and fame. So he created his own deliberately faulty product to rival the new brands, then ruin the reputation of green fuels. In fact, you could even have Francesco be a spokesperson for an alternate brand, who's entering on behalf of them to show up the all-in-all races. That way it'd make even more sense for him to be the red herring, given he'd have a motive for ruining the all-in-all races. Then, when it's proven he wasn't actually the villain, give us a real conclusion to the race plot by having him win in the end, proving that yes, real green fuels are a good thing. Is there a lesson to be learned from Cars 2? Well, that's just the thing. No, do not listen to the lessons this movie is trying to push. No, it's not okay to screw your friends over, but try to make it seem like they're the ones with the problem. No, it's not okay to suggest all disabled people are evil and worthless. Overall, just try to think of the implications when writing a story. Sometimes, it's all too easy to accidentally give off a very wrong impression. And that, my friends, is exactly what went wrong. Thanks for watching the video. What are your thoughts on this movie? Do you think it's overhated? Do you find Mater just as annoying as I do? And do you think the original Cars was underrated or not worth your time either? Whatever your thoughts, let me know down below. Like, share and subscribe and all that jazz, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Goodbye!